Israel Gutierrez, Kevin Blackistone, Pablo Estori. Hey, Jackie Mack. Good to have you back today. The mask.
Come on! Captain America captures Augusta.
Also, Ohtani. And the man who was 0 for everything. And whether a top 10 finish makes up for you dislocating and relocating your ankle in front of billions of people on the internet forever. I mean, it's the relocation that gets me, isn't it?
Can't watch it.
He's fine, Jack.
It's Around the Horn, the show of competitive banter. Here's Tony Reale.
The golf was good that day, my friends. More 60s on a Sunday than a farmer's market in Kennebunkport. And suddenly the great beast appeared before us, the maligned leisure participant.
Athlete.
Whatever. Easy, big fella. All right, you guys have no idea what I'm doing here. It doesn't matter. Patrick Reed, his first major. 15 under for a green jacket. Let's talk about Reed. The golfer, other golfers, and fans love to hate. There was a column in the Los Angeles Times by a man who looks like Billy Joel today. Disliked, unloved, whatever. Patrick Reed wins the Masters without much support. Is that how you saw it, Israel Gutierrez? And what does the golf world do now that Patrick Reed is on top of it?
Man, you are on fire this Monday morning, Tony.
We had 5 days off, man. I'm ready.
I don't know if it was an anti-Patrick Reed thing as much as it was a we want more drama thing. Because if you look at it, I mean, he is Captain America. He has done great things for the U.S. team at Ryder Cup, President's Cup. He took down Rory McIlroy face-to-face. And that's the type of guy, the everyman, if you will, that we're supposed to want to embrace. And we're supposed to say, yeah, take down Rory, take down Jordan Spieth.
So why
we'll
isn't
run away
that
with the
happening
Masters.
with Reed?
I don't know exactly why it isn't happening with him, but again, I don't know if it's a him thing. I think it's a drama thing. I think they want somebody to potentially choke. I think they want that person to complete the big comeback. It's sort of anticlimactic when you don't have that finish, whether it's the big comeback or, like we've had the Masters before, the choke jobs and everything else. So I don't think it was anything personal against him. He's just not that familiar a name as much as we loved him during those international competitions.
We've seen Reed. He wears red on Sundays at an homage to Tiger, but he's had some comments in the past calling himself a top 5 player before he was actually really considered a top 5 player and things of that nature. So I ask you, Kevin Blackistone, did golf celebrate Reed or kind of root against him?
No, people were rooting against him. I mean, if you followed the Twitter comments, people were absolutely turned against him. And it absolutely makes no sense. But you know what it is? It's that golf just has a death grip on nostalgia. They just cannot move ahead. And they have as many unwritten rules as baseball does. It's interesting. Golf Digest put Patrick Reed on its cover with him shushing the crowd like that. Oh, you're not supposed to do that. What's wrong with that? That just adds a little drama to it. You mentioned it. He said that he thought he was a top 5 golfer in the world. What's wrong with that? The guy has confidence in his skills. I think you would want to embrace that. And as Izzy just pointed out, what a team player. You're talking about a guy who did perform well for the Ryder Cup when no one else around him did. You're talking about a guy who carried Augusta State to 2 back-to-back national championships. That is a guy who's a team player. So what if he has a different style?
Okay. I think 2 back-to-back would be 4 national championships. I think it was just 1 back-to-back, but I'll give you the point nonetheless. Pablo Torre, what did you think of Reed taking the green jacket?
I was trying to figure out who's the best non-golf analogy to Patrick Reed. And I think it kind of felt like watching Jay Cutler win the Masters. I don't know Patrick Reed. I don't know him personally, but all I do know is that Izzy and Kevin have given a very generous review in terms of his social relations among teammates. The guy has Yelp reviews dating back to college where these guys don't like him. His Ryder Cup teammates don't like him. Some of it is the fact that he was shushing people on the course at the Ryder Cup. Some of it is that he was allegedly cheating in practice rounds against teammates. And some of it is the fact that, to Izzy's point earlier, I think Augusta expects a certain drama, but they also expect a certain decorum. And Patrick Reed isn't that type of guy. The Ryder Cup is a different venue from Augusta, and when the guy who brought Augusta State to back-to-back glory isn't beloved in Augusta, I think that says something about how he's been dealing with the people around the golf circuit, even if, we can't say so much about him as a
Okay, and Jackie Mack, now that Reed's on top of the golf world, what happens?
Well, I would tell everybody to read just the heartbreaking story that Alan Shipnuck wrote about Reed and his family. He's been estranged from his mother and father since he was married in 2012, hasn't spoken to them or his sister since then. And they were watching the Masters with tears of joy down their face, a few miles away, and were not welcome at Augusta. Now, I don't know Justin Reed. I don't know his family. I'm not going to make a judgment on what's gone on with their family and who's right or who's wrong. But if you're looking for a reason why people read that story and know about this story, that's going to maybe turn them off, I think that's a place you can start. I will say this. I think one of the greatest things that can happen in golf is when you lead from start to finish. I think it's the hardest thing in all of sports. I'm talking about every sport, because when you're playing from behind, you're playing with house money. We know that golf is a mental game. And if you're able to go the way Reed did from start to finish as the leader and fend off some of the biggest names in golf, I'm very, very, very impressed by that.
You're speaking of Sunday from start to finish, and that's why I was surprised, Kevin and Israel, you said there was no drama. I mean, Spieth's day yesterday. He had a 64 on Sunday at Augusta. That's Pantheon-level stuff. I mean, there was a column in the Dallas Morning News written by a man who thinks he looks like Josh Brolin on how Spieth was out of contention Sunday. That didn't age well, so get him rewrite. And today's column was that this was Spieth's Masters, not Reed's. Is that how you see it? Could Spieth Sunday possibly been more impressive than Reed's, Pablo?
Well, from a certain perspective, I mean, the guy shot 8 under 64. That is tied for the lowest round at the Masters ever. So as a performance on any given single day, there's a great argument there. But I also do feel like the columnist doth protest too much. I mean, Tim Kalishaw, you can't have it both ways. Like, at the very least, you double down on the hot take. You don't retract that hot take and then triple down on another one. No, that was the wrong strategy, even if there was a point buried underneath all of that self-protection.
Jackie?
What Spieth did was incredible, except for he didn't win. And that's what it's all about at the Masters, who ends up winning on the final day. Okay. And Tim should know that. That's why he's in the lower end of the one-loss column on our particular.
So, the man's not even here to defend himself. Go ahead, Gutierrez.
You brought him up.
This all speaks to my whole point on Patrick Reed here, because all those things you guys said about him, we didn't know. A lot of people didn't know going into. They didn't know even in that fourth round. They probably knew afterward after reading some stories here, but the true golf enthusiasts might have. But we didn't go in there thinking, we don't like Patrick Reed because of this. In fact, I think what they probably said was, well, the wire-to-wire thing that Jackie said was super impressive, well, that's what's boring to them. We want a little bit more drama. That's why this Jordan Spieth comeback. Not only was it an incredible comeback, not only did he shoot a 64 to get there, but we know him. He finished first, second, and top 10 in his first 4. So why wouldn't we want that drama? So, yeah, I think on Sunday he was the better performer.
Anybody want to talk Tiger Woods? We've gone a full 7 minutes without Tiger Woods. No? Nobody wants to talk? Well, let me say this.
Thank you.
Back to not being back, or maybe a 69 on Sunday makes you go back to thinking he's being back. Blackistone?
No, he's not being back, but it was a good weekend for him because he made the cut. He looked like for just a second he was going to make a move, but he still struggled on big par fives. But you know what? He's 40 years old. He's had these 4 back surgeries and been in and out of the game for the last several years. So that's a positive for Tiger Woods and Tiger Woods fans.
He's 42 years old. Last thing, I think we had Billy Joel. We had Josh Brolin in the show. Jackie, if I might, look at the screen right here. Jordan Spieth's mom, just a little bit. You see it? Well, let me say this. For the movie about Spieth's mom, Andy Murray's mom, but that's only if we can't get Laura Dern, all right?
Laura Dern, yeah, we hear that a lot. So does my sister.
We'll move on. Now, the only man in sports who has his own interstitial.
No!
3 home runs hit this week for Ohtani, and then perfect baseball for 6 innings. He struck out 12 in his 7, hit 100 on the gun, and got the win. What are we witnessing here? Is it possible the ceiling is too low for Shohei Ohtani, Jackie?
It's incredible, isn't it? And I love when we start pulling out the superlatives, Tony, and the latest one is he's the 3rd pitcher all time to have 2 wins and 3 home runs in his team's first 10 games. Yeah, but they don't mention that the last person to do it was 99 years ago. I mean, what a ridiculous thing to say. This guy, I don't know if he can keep it up, but I don't even think we should concentrate on that, right? Because what he's doing is nothing short of amazing. Nobody can hit his splitter, And then his fastball's going in there at like 98 miles an hour, and then he can paint the corners. Now, can he keep it up? Everyone keeps saying, well, no, he can't. He's going to be doing all that hitting, all that pitching. What a bunch of nonsense. Of course he could keep doing it, and I hope he does.
Okay, Pablo?
I am a stockholder in this man, and it is the hitting, I think, that's probably more impressive at this point, because if you read the baseball writers who watched this guy through spring training, they weren't sure whether he could hit the American curveball. They didn't know whether his plate discipline was going to work out.
Curveball.
There
that
is some
comes in with a different
allegedly.
accent. Yes, of course, sure.
There is a difference.
It's got more English on it, right?
That's right. Yeah, those seams raised at different elevations and whatnot. But the thing about Shohei Ohtani is that the guy is doing something not only that people have not done, he's doing something people haven't attempted. Like the Babe Ruth comparison, 1919, right? We talk about that as the last time something like this had happened. Babe Ruth led the AL in every offensive category, was an excellent pitcher. The difference is, Babe Ruth, that was the last year he was going to pitch. He gets traded to the Yankees, et cetera, blah, 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 blah. We know how that goes. Ohtani is doing this from day one. No one has done this in over a century. You got to go to the 1800s to find someone who actually tried to do this, and that's what's.
I just want to note here that Pablo just blah 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 over the greatest player in the history of American sports. Go ahead, Kevin Blackistone.
Ohtani to me is an extension of your youth, and when you're growing up, usually the best athlete in your neighborhood is a guy who also hits. And he also pitches, and he plays quarterback, and he's a point guard on the team. And that's what Ohtani is. And you know what the real shame of it is? When you talk about what Jackie just mentioned, going back 99 years, is that baseball became so specialized that it did not allow these types of guys to do what Ohtani is doing. Bob Gibson maybe could have done this. He was such a fantastic athlete. He even played for the Harlem Globetrotters in the year that he refused to play professional baseball.
But are you more impressed about the pitching or more impressed about the hitting?
I'm more impressed about the pitching.
Okay.
Because he just went out and threw 7 perfect
Same
perfect
question
innings.
to you, Israel.
Yeah, there you go.
It's funny with Jackie's stat there, where the last player to do it was 1919. The previous player before that was 1883. Here we are trying to fix baseball with changes for the future and the things that the kids want, when really we should go back 100 years, even 2 centuries ago, and play the game that way, because that's what's making this entertaining. It's funny that he's in Anaheim with arguably the best player in the game in Mike Trout, and this is what we want to see. Why it's different? It's a novelty, but he's also really, really good at it. I mean, 34 straight batters without giving up a hit, only 1 walk in there. I mean, yada, yada, yada. This team could win the World Series.
That's our horn. Blah, blah, blah. Pablo, last word.
The guy has more home runs than Aaron Judge and more strikeouts than Max Scherzer. I think we're going to see some kids try to be like him.
Yeah.
The only thing is, guys, just remember his spring training numbers. Don't get too carried away.
Don't get too carried away in spring training, Jackie.
Carried away.
There's only one response we could have to Shohei Ohtani.
No!
She's vomiting Ohtani, people. I'm not sure if you're catching on. Vomiting Ohtani.
Around the Horn is brought to you by Rampage. This Thursday, Big Meets Bigger. Rampage starring Dwayne Johnson. Rated PG-13.
Everyone in the neighborhood knew about Bobby. Bobby, the basketball boy, they called him. Bobby wanted to go pro someday, so he was always out in the driveway shooting hoops. But one day, his mom came out and told him,
"Hey, your wife wants you to take out the trash?"
His mom was visiting, and Bobby was a grown man. He had kind of missed his window. Plus, no one had ever seen him actually make a basket. But on the other hand, Bobby had heard how Geico could save him money on car insurance, so he switched and saved. So, it was all good.
Buy or sell.
The best game of the NBA regular season Friday night, which means nothing because you people don't remember anything that isn't 2 minutes ago. Point that these Cavs Sixers highlights might as well be hieroglyphics on a cave wall. And on yesterday's win over the Mavs, Phillies won 14 straight, settling into the 3 seed. What does it all mean, Israel?
Well, I mean, if you look at the landscape of the Eastern Conference, the Cavs aren't really afraid of the Raptors anymore, given their last 2 meetings. You obviously look at the Celtics and say they don't have a healthy team right there. So you look at the Sixers and say, could they be that team that gives the Cavs a run? And if they were to face, given that they're 3-4 right now, would be in the conference finals, it would be very interesting, but I don't think they'd have a chance.
Yeah, calm down. Of those 14 wins in a row, 12 of those are against teams that will not be in the playoffs. That's not to say they're bad teams, but that's just to give you some idea of what's going on. Their youth is rarely served in the NBA playoffs. And I don't think
one of them was a win over Cleveland, though, even though we got to let a 30-point lead go. Go ahead, Pablo.
And they did it without Joel Embiid, who is, of course, their best player, maybe the best player in the league one day. But it is one of those things where if not for playoff LeBron, I do think the Sixers would be in the NBA Finals this year. And all of this is validating results, even though if you looked at the process, it would have been obvious many moons ago. We didn't need this to know that they were right, but they are.
Jackie.
You've got to realize that I know the competition, KB, but there's other things that have been going on for the Sixers that just show how much they've improved. Simmons is one obvious one. They've cut down on their turnovers. A guy like Covington, who no one talks about, he's going to be on a lot of people's first or second team, all defensive. You got the veteran JJ Redick. There's a lot of things going on. And remember, Sarge couldn't play with Simmons. Everyone was worried. How can these two play together? Well, that is certainly no longer a problem. And by the way, they also have a great coach.
Odds maker right now, 0 to 100%. Chances they come out of the Eastern Conference. Anybody giving their number over single digits?
I am. Over single digits?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, yell it out. Let me hear it.
Hit me with the 33.3 repeating.
33.3 repeating, of course. We'll move on. Buy or sell two, caring. As in Steve Kerr saying the Warriors need to care more. He then revised it saying they need to defend better. Kevin, you think the Warriors have a caring problem, a defending problem, or no problem, really?
I think they have a problem of avoiding a kerfuffle, if you will. Look, they have injury problems, they have defensive problems, they have all sorts of problems, but the last thing the coach needs to do is stir those problems up, getting ready to go into the playoffs.
I'm giving extra points for a kerfuffle from Steve Kerr. How about you, Pablo Torre?
Steve Kerr explained in the aftermath of this that sometimes you need to break a whiteboard. That is the explanation for why a mild-mannered coach can be a guy who is getting on his team. But there's also a problem with honesty here, right? Because you don't want to make it seem, once again, like they're just cruising into the postseason. You got to put on a polite face and say, no, this also matters, even if it really does.
Jackie.
Hey, Steve Kerr does this once or twice a year. He even admits that. He blows up, and he should for those veteran players. They should be able to handle it. My guess is there were a little hurt feelings in that locker room, and that's why he's walking back a bit. I hope that isn't the case, because shame on them if it is.
There's been a lot of hurt feelings, a lot of technicals on multiple players on this team this year. Go ahead.
Come on, guys. Pony up.
He's saying the same thing. Caring is defending. That's where we see the effort in the NBA. And this is the other thing that drives me nuts about this. When Kevin Durant was talking about it after the game, said we did care. The other team was a little bit more aggressive. Aggressive and effort. It's the same thing. We're all saying the same thing. They weren't trying hard enough.
True.
Are you sure, though?
Put it like that.
Sharing as well, right? I mean, can we agree on that? Back to baseball. Giancarlo Stanton is 0 for forever with 1 million strikeouts. He was booed as the Yankees are inventing ways to lose now, and he called it a bad week. Pablo, what are you calling it?
I call it the bends. I'm not worried about the performance. I'm worried about the pressure in this media market. This plays differently than in Miami. In New York, all this is a big deal, even if Miami it wouldn't have been.
Jack?
I'm calling it a historically bad week, but I'm also going to remind everybody how darn cold it is. So cold that the Cubs had to cancel their baseball game today. So everybody just put on some gloves and calm down and let the guy who played in Miami all of last year warm up literally and figuratively, okay?
It was a Giancarlo Stanton week, and for those who have not watched him over the course of his career, he has many stretches like this. It's just unfortunate that it happens to be in that town, in that stadium right now, but they will be more than happy with him when he ends up with 50-plus home runs.
You know, we've talked about all the home runs that baseball players have been hitting the last few years. You know what else they've been doing a lot of the last few years? Record strikeouts, and that's what he did.
He has more strikeouts right now. He had more strikeouts last week than Joe DiMaggio had in 1941, the entire season.
Yeah, but that's just silly. That's silly.
Yeah. But it's also true. Gutierrez, McMullen, you know what else is silly? Eliminating a panelist that you're seeing every day on a show before we get to the final part of the show. But we do it anyway. Blackistone Torre Showdown next. Blackistone Torre Showdown, the magic word.
Now the bench is clear as Molina didn't like something that Lovullo said.
He called me twice.
All right, Yadi Molina, player, talking about Torre Lovullo, manager, and Lovullo was accused of using the magic word twice. So what should baseball do with a manager who has potty mouth, KB?
Well, it's not just about being a potty mouth. If Molina says he directed a name at him, then I fully understand his reaction. I mean, he crossed the line. You can't do that.
But if it's Earl Weaver, the answer to the question is you send that guy to the Hall of Fame. Like, the MFer as a word is a figurative word to begin with, and it was used figuratively in this context as they synonym for, like, that guy. I think that's the
So you have Torey Lovello in the Hall of Fame already?
Well,
with Earl Weaver.
Point, Black and Stone. Showdown 2. Anthony Rendon ejected for dropping his bat. It has since been explained by umpires that on the pitch before Rendon left the batter's box, and that, combined with the bat dropping, is enough for an ejection. Legit or illegit, Pablo?
It's illegit because it's so hard to explain to anybody with eyeballs what happened here. Like, you need a more plausible reason for why you did that. You can't just claim it's because of some subtle machinations that were going on outside of people's line of sight.
My goodness, how sensitive are umpires these days? The season has just started. A guy's just upset with a call, didn't say anything, taking his gloves off, ready to go back to field his position, and he gets thrown out the game. Come on, stop it.
You know what else is hard to explain to anybody with eyeballs? How the scoring works in Showdown. Point, game, FaceTime, Kevin Blackistone.
Oh, I think the scoring on this show is brilliant. Hey, another shout out to UMBC, the Retrievers. This time, knocked off another number 1 on Friday while you weren't paying attention. Albany rolled into town with the number 1 lacrosse team. The Retrievers weren't having it, said get out of town with an L. You gotta love everything that's going on at UMBC right now. Just opened up a new basketball arena. Herman Rabowski, the president's got things rolling up there. You know they got a great chess team as well. Shout out to UMBC, baby. Part of the network here in the University of Maryland.
Shout out to UMBC. Thank you, Kevin.
Retrievers.
One thought to leave with. It was one of the great weekends in hockey. I think we all saw the Frozen Four and Minnesota Duluth's sensational championship. And, of course, the end of the regular season in NHL. But our hearts are all on the Humboldt hockey tragedy. There's nothing but sadness here. A suggestion? As we celebrate the best in hockey over the next 2 months, let's allow for a moment of silence and an anthem before every game. The Humboldt community demands that respect.